Hey guys, so I just want to talk a bit about reputation and share some ideas on that. So when Atala Prism comes, we just want to look at what tools or solutions could we add and create that could help community members build up a form of reputation that they could then use to verify to different people or to different products or dApps or protocols. So there's something that shows some value that they've contributed and or participated in a lot of things in the ecosystem. So why are we looking at reputation? So there's lots of different ways that you could contribute or have certain behaviors that add value to the Cardano ecosystem. As some examples, you could be participating in all the Catalyst after town halls and then just showing that you're talking about problems, adding your perspective and just helping to kind of solve different problems in the ecosystem. You could be developing open source code for different tools that are being used. You could be updating documentation that's helping maintain and keep everything up to date. And when you make this kind of big list of all these contributions and different things that kind of add value to the ecosystem in some way, then you can start to look at how could we verify that contribution? How can we make sure, is there a process that we can go through that's manageable and practical, that some trusted party, some ecosystem project can issue a credential to you and say, this person's provided this contribution or participated in this thing, some sort of action they've done that has shown some form of value to the ecosystem. And then when you have these kind of different issuers and ecosystem projects that can issue these credentials, it will allow the community to verify who is participating and contributing in different areas in the ecosystem. So with that in mind, we've kind of, with the community existing in some of the chats and kind of conversations we've had, as well as adding our own, we've created a list of different ideas that and explore different ways that we could kind of look at building up reputation. I'm not going to go through this list now because it's going to take far too long. But if you go to ideas.projectcatalyst.org, it'll redirect you to a Git book that kind of goes through all these different ideas. So for these different ideas, we've kind of looked at what's the credential that would be issued, which are the ecosystem projects that would actually apply to this credential, who would it be valuable for? And then we actually kind of assess each credential to say, what impact could this have? What moderation required? Is it actually practical to actually be the issuer of this credential, the one who's actually going to verify that you're doing this kind of contribution? Is that really labor intensive, or is it actually something that can be automated, and is it practical? And then finally, we kind of assess like, what's the implementation difficulty? Is there any blockers to this? Do we need access to be able to verify something? Is there any data required, or is a certain amount of tooling needed to make this actually possible? So check out that link if you want to see some of those ideas. What we've kind of, from that, we've kind of, what we've worked out is we have some short-term ideas that we could start approaching very quickly that the PACE team is really interested in pursuing as well with some of these community projects. And then there's some more medium-term ones that can also be explored that are also really interesting that I'll go through now. So in the short term, we have ones that do with education that are really kind of interesting. So completing an educational course or completing a workshop. So the benefit of these as a credential is they help to highlight this participation in learning about the ecosystem or some part of Cardano, let's say Plutus smart contract. And this can help indicating learning of a skill. The beauty of these kind of credentials is it is the ecosystem projects that issue them, that become issuers of these credentials, are can fully decide what they want to do. So they could have some simple quiz if it's going to be a really simple credential, or they could have some fully fledged course where they have to go through much more kind of like rigorous kind of testing to work out whether they actually they actually have the skill that we're going to issue them the credential for. And some example projects for this are the Catalyst School. The Catalyst School currently helps with learning about Project Catalyst. And then you also have Gimbal Labs that help with doing project-based learning to help you learn about Plutus. So these are two kind of very different kind of approaches and projects. And they could have very different kind of approaches to how they want to do some form of assessment or workshop or course to decide on who they're going to issue credentials for completing that course or workshop. And as long as those kind of projects are transparent in the process they use and how they kind of issue that credential, what kind of process is going through, then the community can see that this provides this kind of value. I know that this kind of they've tried to learn about being a community advisor, or they've done this kind of project, and this is the project they've done, and they've been issued a credential that signals that they've completed all of this kind of prerequisite kind of conditions in each of those projects. And that will help those community members build up some form of reputation that they've done these kind of educational kind of different processes. So the second one that is also really interesting that we've looked at is this under collaboration and communication is attending live sessions and hosting live sessions. And a really good example of these kind of where these credentials could make sense is this Catalyst after town hall kind of sessions. So at the moment, there's we have breakout rooms in these sessions in the after town hall where we kind of talk about different kind of topics, and you can go over different problems and different solutions. You're kind of exploring, and it's very discussion. And if you could be issued a credential for participating or hosting those kind of sessions, it really helps to highlight that you've been participating in parts of the ecosystem. And whether that's, kind of just chatting about problem, offering your perspective, trying to kind of add value in whatever way that, you can. And if you're hosting it, you're also kind of contributing towards actually starting conversations as well, which is another benefit. As long as the tools are in place and it's easy for a non-developer to kind of issue these, then the moderation is manageable for this. That the person who's hosting the session or the like Catalyst Swarm themselves are kind of verifying that someone's hosting it or people are kind of attending them. And over time, if we can attach identity to these kind of sessions, then that could be a way to kind of automate this. So then if you've got your identity attached to it and you meet some preconditions, such as you've attended for 30 minutes or you've stayed till the end, then you could actually automate this process of being issued credentials for this. And I think the value of these kind of credentials is they could actually be really valuable for kind of collaboration. So if I have an idea for a DApp, it might be really valuable for me to really see who's been attending this project-based learning in Gimbal Labs. So maybe I could ask them some questions, or maybe I'm interested in even actually going through the same process of presenting that idea in Gimbal Labs and going through the process within it, rather than, let's say, doing it with a friend. I say, oh, let's do this in a more collaborative approach and do it for this process, because I can see the people who've gone through this process, verify that, and then talk to them and be like, okay, what are the pros and cons of this? So being able to see who's participated, engage in these different kind of different community kind of ecosystem projects could be really valuable for opening the door for understanding who to go and talk to in different contexts for what might make sense to reach out. If we move on to some of the medium-term ideas that we've looked at, the blockers here is they either require like more thought, or they kind of have a blocker to why they're not kind of considered at the moment. But these are ones that could be, after these short-term ones are looked at, that we might be ready to start kind of implementing these in the future. So the first one that we've kind of looked at that sounds really promising is this kind of idea of community contribution rewards. So it'd be really, really valuable if we could highlight different impactful contributions that people have made to the community and the ecosystem. For instance, they could be doing some sort of open source tooling and making some changes to that. They could be maintaining documentation. And those kind of, they could be completely public goods as well. It's like, where it's just kind of like, it's just completely a public good. It could be an event, anything. And if we could like indicate which one of these we think are valuable, we have this kind of list of ones that we think are valuable. It'd be really good to have a process, whether it's a governance process or a set of policies we have, that if as long as that you win in that governance process or you meet this policy, you could be issued a credential that signals that you've provided this kind of contribution. And that could be a really good way for someone to actually get some recognition for what they've been providing. And then that could also lead to like different collaborations or different kind of opportunities for them, which kind of makes it more worthwhile for doing those kind of actions, which is really good for providing value back to those people who are really kind of moving the ecosystem forward. Now, that also kind of leads on to, obviously, the community kind of contribution awards is an idea that could also, have compensation as well. Like there could be a proposal that says, we're going to take this funding, and it's going to also be, as well as being issued a credential to signal that, you've been providing really valuable contributions to the community, you could also get some kind of award as well, which is something else that is interesting to be explored at some point. And then the other kind of medium-term one that I think we add a lot of value that is very promising is when you're performing any of the Catalyst roles. So whether it's a community advisor, a veteran community advisor, being a proposer, if we could highlight and verify that people have done these kind of roles, that could be really, really valuable to verify that you've been providing certain value to the ecosystem for a certain period of time. For instance, it'd be quite useful to know that someone's been a community advisor for, let's say, 4 different funding rounds. It shows this kind of like constant contribution towards improving the proposal quality and providing that kind of valuable assessment. Now, this blocker to this, it kind of needs a way to verify who performed the role, which at the moment isn't really available. But over time, it could be manually done at the beginning, but there is a way for this to be automated. So if you attach identity to, for instance, the community advisor process, as long as they provide, let's say, 3 assessments that aren't filtered out and are completely valid, they could be automatically issued a credential to say, I've done these valid assessments, and now I could be issued a credential to say I was a community advisor for this given funding round. And that could be used in, for instance, like I say, community advisors, if you've been issued like lots of credentials for this, then that kind of helps to signify some reputation that you're quite good at reviewing and analyzing proposals. And that could be open up doors for reputation in different contexts for different projects they may want to work on, or different projects that want to do a similar kind of process. So I think it could open up the doors for different ways to build reputation and participate in different tools and projects. So that's it for some of the ideas we've explored at the moment. But now I want to open the floor to anyone else. If you have any ideas of reputation, or you're working on reputation in any way, then there is already a chat in the Catalyst Swarm Discord, and the link's there, and I'll put it in the description below, under reputation systems chat, under the incubator groupings in Swarm, where we're already kind of talking about this. You can also just leave some comments below if you prefer. But if you have any ideas or anything you'd like to share, then please share away, and I'd love to add some more ideas to the document and kind of look at what kind of ideas they may even be higher priority that we should be looking at immediately, that would really start adding value to how the community can start building these different forms of reputation. So on from that, we actually already have a proposal that's looking at these community credentials in Fund 6 under the Atala Prism challenge. So this proposal really focuses on these kind of short-term credentials that can really be implemented now, the ones that don't have the blockers, that we can already look at talking to these ecosystem projects and be like, you could start thinking about these now. And, as long as you have the right tools, this could be a really valuable thing to start thinking about. We already have a presentation we did in IdeaFest that kind of goes through this, that again is going to be linked below. So that is it for now. So that's all we have on reputation. I think it's a really exciting area that is a really good building block for future things coming up in Cardano. So yeah, thank you for listening, and I will catch you guys in a future video. So thank you very much.